Look, you Riz Gat Sigma warriors have ruined sneaker reselling and sneaker culture as a whole, bro. You have destroyed the foundation that is sneaker culture. Hypebeast Timmy sucked all the fun and enjoyment out of the game, and honestly, it needed to happen because sneaker culture is being destroyed in order to be rebuilt, and that's all thanks to the new generation of sneakerheads. The pandemic babies are taking over. Hate to say it, old heads, but your time is being pushed away, bro. They're coming in and they're changing what it means to be a sneakerhead. Hype is everything. People don't care about the stories. They don't care about the athletes that wear the sneakers. They just want to feel a part of the hype and the money. Nowadays, when you talk about somebody and what it means to be a sneakerhead, they're obviously going to associate sneakerheads with resale, money, and obsession. This wasn't always the case. People were obsessive, but they were obsessive over the athletes and the stories. But nowadays, most sneakerheads are concerned with how fat they can make their pockets by keeping a pair of kicks and selling them to some other idiot. Oops, I mean somebody that really likes sneakers. Ever since 2020, we find ourselves with a lot of new sneakerheads. The culture cannot sustain the weight of all these new sneakerheads, and things are beginning to collapse. This new generation is greedy, just like the ones before them, but this greed is at a whole new level that cannot be sustained by this market. And as we can see here in 2024, the pieces are falling right before us, but now it's an opportunity to rebuild things. Let's talk about Gen Z, Gen Alpha, and what happened during the whole reselling pandemic that started during the COVID-19 pandemic. Yes, it was a pandemic. Yeah, they were making it rain while they're at home, social distancing. They had nothing but time on their hands, and with that time, they're allowed to get on their computers and get all the sneakers. They learned about StockX. They were watching the trends. They got obsessed with Bitcoin and sneaker resale investments. These raffles may be one of the worst things that happened to sneakers because things got so digitalized. It made it so easy for anybody to get in, get a sneaker, and call themselves a sneakerhead. What we have nowadays is the average person wants a piece of the cake too. They want to have fun. They want to see what all the hype's about, and they want to enjoy things as well. The pandemic created a deep association with money and sneakers that was never seen before. People had access to StockX, YouTube videos, TikTok videos. There was so much knowledge available online that everybody wanted to be a sneakerhead because they saw what money was coming into the culture. Eventually, people started loving sneakers more for their monetary value as opposed to their sentimental value. Very few people know who is the signature athlete of a lot of the shoes that they wear or what inspired the creator to make the shoes. They honestly do not care. The old generation loves those type of stories, and that's what made the sneakers have their monetary value. But honestly, hype is everything. If the people of the culture decide that this is the valuable sneaker, it's done. Look at Gallery Department Asics. Look at Travis Scott Jordan 1s. They are not necessarily expensive because of the person. They're more so expensive because of the hype. And this is really bad because people see sneakers as a quick cash grab. Like I said, all you need is an email address, a credit card, and a way to get on the Nike sneaker app or whatever app you have, and you have a chance of getting sneakers for retail, and you might just buy something just because it's a quick flip. When you combine that with the awe-striking number of bots on these apps and how unfair things may be, it's rather difficult to be a sneakerhead, but people are willing to work through the difficulties in order to make a quick buck. And a lot of old heads, they started to see a shift. People don't care about the memories of going outside or going to the store and picking up a sneaker. A lot of sneakerheads, their story was, I got lucky on an app. I hit and I got a sneaker for the low. Or I paid $1,000 for a sneaker off of StockX. Go, whatever. I got a good deal. These are the symbolic stories of the new generation. How much of a deal can I get from somebody? How much can I rip somebody off? Or how much can I avoid being ripped off? Since things became digitalized in the pandemic era, there was a lot of unnecessary competition for sneakers, and this is why the game is collapsing today. The people who could not compete were forced to pay up or get out, and this is why the sneaker resale bubble eventually burst and popped. Truth be told, a lot of the broken practices of sneaker reselling that existed during the pandemic era were never going to have any type of sustain because people were eventually going to go broke. Always remember this, buying sneakers is a luxury, it's a privilege, it's a first world problem at the end of the day. You will eventually realize that, hey, you know what? I don't need all these sneakers. And now in today's age, people are definitely waking up and realizing like, oh my God, I either have to choose between eating, keeping lights on, or buying sneakers. You know which one you're going to pick if you have two brain cells. And honestly, a lot of sneakerheads don't have that sometimes. But hey, Sneaker resale was thriving from about 2020 to 2022. I remember in 2022, Jordans and Yeezys were running the game. There were a lot of Jordan 1s, Jordan 4s releasing like crazy. There were new Yeezy models coming out every couple of months, and every time a new model dropped, that was the one. I remember when foam runners were like $500-$600 because they were so new and so different. It also had a steep cost, and many people did not want to pay that high exorbitant cost. Sneaker resale depends on two things: scarcity and necessity. And people eventually found a way around this because at the end of the day, someone has and someone has not. And in order for this to succeed, the person who doesn't have must demand and want the things from the person that has them. But if they don't have this demand, there is no desire, and the market will crumble. And you have to understand the biggest thing that took place during the 2020 pandemic, average people wanted to be sneakerheads. The cute girl from your gym, she's a sneakerhead now. Your 40-year-old mom who's dating a 21-year-old boy and that's your new father, she also wants to have sneakers as well. There's a lot of people who may not be traditional sneakerheads, people who didn't take part in sports and other pieces of fashion. They also wanted to be sneakerheads. At the end of the day, the people who represented these brands also started to expand. Look at Kanye West, look at Travis Scott. They allowed people who weren't traditional athletes to also feel a part of this culture. And with the expansion came hype and came greed. But guess what? The hype and the greed became a disease that eventually spread to average sneakers that didn't have a name for themselves. Every single Jordan 4 colorway would be difficult to get. There was a point where every single foam runner colorway that would drop was difficult to get because people knew that those models had extremely high demand. When you put people in this sort of ultimatum, you're forcing them to make a decision, and the customers didn't make a decision. And recently we see a new shift. I would say around 2023, we saw a very big shift in my eyes. You saw people gravitate away from hype per se. People were more concerned with how things look than how hype something was. Hence the rise of Asics, hence the rise of New Balances, hence the rise of other smaller brands. Those sneakers really popped off because people were more concerned about how their appearances were. And this is the biggest shift that has occurred that really knocked the sneaker resale and the whole sneaker culture down on its knees. The fact that people are more concerned with social media perception than anything else. Truth be told, the number one kicker about this new generation is the fact they do not care what is real and what is fake. That was the number one thing that made sneakerheads such powerful conglomerates back in the day. I'm talking about early 2000s, late 2000s. The people cared about what was real, what was fake. If your jump man looked a little funny, you got roasted. It was very clear who was and who was not. When you're wearing those Skechers and they wanted to look like Jordans, you got roasted. Nowadays, as long as your sneakers look real and you know how to PTSO, you are all good with this new generation because they do not care. They don't want to pay a lot of money, but they want to wear what's hype and they want to wear what's cool and they want to fit in. So they stop going to resellers all the time because they realize, like, look, most people nowadays are going to assume what I'm wearing is fake. I'm not going to be able to get that validation, but where I can get validation is being able to dress well. And this nonchalant attitude really hit in the sneaker market. You see companies are able to sell out of sneakers as quickly, and now they have to match this hype that has been created since they think everybody wants all these hype shoes. And yes, the extremely hype shoes still sell out, but the average somewhat hype shoe doesn't sell out as quickly. What do I mean by that? Look at Jordan 4 Breads. Look at the military blues. Those weren't instant sellouts, and they had so many pairs of those. Everybody has them because, once again, people care about fashion. Those sneakers would have sold way more 2 years ago. They would have sold for much higher value. These sneakerheads took a bold approach to what it means to be a sneakerhead and to have fashion, and they shifted the paradigm and they changed a lot of the pre-existing values that honestly gatekept a lot of people from being sneakerheads in the first place. And understand, there's a major disconnect between the new and the old, and honestly there's so many walls put up, and walls are meant to divide people. We got to destroy the walls in order to restore the connection. Yes, things are destroyed. Yes, things are in pieces, But what are we rebuilding to? We're rebuilding a community. At the end of the day, and I've said this before, what it really means to be a sneakerhead is just to love and appreciate sneakers. That's it. You don't have to have a million and one pairs. You can honestly own 2 pairs of Skechers, love them to death, know a lot about Jordans or know nothing about Jordans. You are still a sneakerhead. And honestly, the rep wearing community, the super hype, athletic, story loving community, and the people that just love fashion, all these different sectors of a much bigger culture need to come together like Pangea and just really reunite things, guys. Like, reselling really divided the culture in so many which ways. You got the people who use it to pay their bills, and I respect that. You got the people who are just greedy and just want to get everything in the world. You got people who just love sneakers. They don't want to participate in reselling. You got the people who are upset with reselling and they just wear reps. There's so many division and sectors within this culture right now. It has no choice but to be in pieces, but things are forming together, and that's with the shift away from monetary greed.